So I keep on hearing people talk about the trust recession, quote unquote, the trust recession, and how and what's happening online. And you can call it a trust recession, or you can listen to this to know what's actually going on. So I've been in the online business space since 2015, and I've been an entrepreneur since I was 9 years old, and I had my first seven-figure business by the time I was 16 years old, and I'm 35 now. So I've spent most of my life being an entrepreneur, and while I'm not 100 years old by any stretch of imagination, I've seen at least a little bit of what's been happening over the last decade. So here's my take on the whole trust recession. Back in 2016, 2017, 2018, if you had an online business, you were at that early adopter phase. Like most people didn't really still know what that was. So if, at the time I lived in Toronto, and if I walked down the road and I asked 100 people if they knew what I said that I did, like most people wouldn't know what that was. And if you do that today, pretty much everybody knows what that is, right? Like if I said I'm a business mentor or a business coach or I help people scale businesses online, people know what that is. And so that's like one piece, right? So let's take that one piece, which is we're now into a larger adoption model and adoption sophistication for the general public. The second thing, in 2020, 2021, and 2022, we had this incredible, quote unquote, incredible time where we printed a lot of money in the United States as well as other countries. And, pretty much everybody I talked to in 2020 got some type of rebate, some type of low interest loan. There's a lot of money going around. And you know what happens when there's a lot of money going around? People make decisions that they normally wouldn't make, right? If you've got an extra $500,000 in your business bank account and you're not used to having that much, you generally, and you didn't work for it, right? You didn't work hard for it. It was easy to come. It was this easy come, easy go. You start spending money on a bunch of different things. And then of course, from a consumer perspective, that was also happening. Okay, so people were not doing due diligence. People weren't people were kind of like whatever the vibe was, right? That's what happened a lot is, I'm feeling good over here. Let me buy this, let me buy that, let me buy that. And then of course, that stopped. Now, all at the time in which that stopped, the economy went into, I don't necessarily want to call it a recession. You talk to some people, it's a recession, talk to other people, it's not a recession, depends on who you talk to. But certainly the money printer is not going burr anymore, okay? And so while all of this is happening, you also have all the blowback of people making decisions in 2020, 21, 22 when there was easy money, and the things that they invested in didn't really end up being what they thought it was. And so you have all the spiraling all at the same time in which you have a part of the online business space, which is very legit and very real. And then you have another part of the business space that is absolutely full of scams, mostly preying on the fact that somebody wants to make money and they don't know what they don't know. And so all of this happens at the same time, and it's all kind of spiraling at the same time. So if you have an economy that's going down, people with less money, all while a higher market sophistication, boom, you have what people are calling a trust recession. So what do you even do about a trust recession? Well, you have to understand that a trust recession is going to be driven by the way marketing is done, right? So in 2015, I came up with this model, and it's called the 3-lane method. And essentially it's based on buyer awareness. Now, I didn't invent this by any stretch of the imagination. I think there's a book back in the 60s that somebody put out that had a version of what I'm about to tell you. And it simply said that there are people that are in the sidewalk, the slow lane, and the fast lane when it comes to buyer attention and awareness. So it's very simple like this. If you're selling marketing, and somebody comes and is in front of you and they don't know that they need marketing, they're in the sidewalk. If somebody has an idea that they need more customers and they're looking for the method or the process or someone to look up to, someone to trust, they're in the slow lane. And if somebody's in front of you today and they want 100 leads tomorrow and they want to grow their business and they know marketing is going to be able to do it, they're probably in the fast lane. Now, a lot of the marketing that is done is always in the fast lane. So generally, if you see VSLs or webinars, that's fast lane material. Like that's meant to try to turn somebody that is here into a customer. And what really has driven the trust recession is utilizing all of the things that people do when they're targeting people in the fast lane. It's scarcity, fear of missing out, some subtle and or not subtle forms of manipulation, overutilizing intimacy and persuasion inside of intimacy in the form of salespeople to be able to get a sale that probably had somebody getting a sale that either shouldn't have bought or bought too soon. Okay? And so the best way I put this is if your marketing is doing its job, you have no buyer's remorse and a very low refund rate when you actually have customers. And the problem with that, of course, is the fact that you have a limit of how fast you can scale. Right? So if you're scaling and you're a business owner wants to scale fast, generally most marketers are going to get people to focus on the fast lane, the people that are solution focused versus people that are trying to understand how this all works and the method and the process and more the intellectual piece. And so the problem with that is that when you have a whole market doing that at the exact same time, you are making it so that you create that trust recession. And then anything that looks like that, anything that's in that fast lane, any marketing that you have in that fast lane is probably not going to work as well as it used to because, of course, that person has seen 1,000 webinars. They've seen 1,000 VSLs. They know what happens. Right? There's no mystery to what happens. And as soon as somebody comes into your world and the first moment they're on guard, it's a lot harder to sell to them. So the way that you sell to somebody in a trust recession is to back up a little bit. And it's to sell to them in the slow lane. Right? And so in the slow lane, the things that matter is that somebody understands that there's a pain and problem. They need to understand the process and methodology. They need to know that you're really good at what you do. They need to see that you're an authority. And it's this experience of, on one side, being able to intellectually allow that person to relax and then emotionally be able to allow that person to buy into who you are and how you do things. And so the cool part about marketing to someone in the slow lane is you're never selling to them. You're just informing them. You're helping them. And so there's no pitch. There's no, most people that have been online and doing online business, they get off a webinar and be like, oh man, do I really have to do that again? Right? Because it can feel really, really yucky to do, well, today, if you buy it, you'll get this and this and this and this. And of course it works. It works. Like doing those things work. Adding the bonus stack and the discount and it works, right? It works because why? Because if we're able to bring someone down into reactive consciousness as a human being, they're going to buy. I'm not saying it's the best thing to do. It's actually not the best thing to do, but it works, at least in the short term. And so how do you get people to buy in a trust recession is to focus on that slow lane and to focus while you're in that slow lane, bringing them into a higher level of consciousness. And here's what I mean by that. I have another model, and it's called the levels of consciousness. And you can get the book at thelevelsbook.com. And I basically say there's 4 levels of consciousness. There's reactive consciousness, willful consciousness, intellectual consciousness, and intuitive consciousness. And this is not just business, though, overall in life. And so most marketing is based on trying to get someone into reactive consciousness. And of course, that gets that quick sale. Boom, right? Stimuli, react, boom. And my belief is you get better customers, higher lifetime value, you make way more money overall if you're able to elevate somebody, right? So if somebody's in reactive consciousness, you get them into willful consciousness. If someone is in willful consciousness, you get them in intellectual consciousness. If someone's in intellectual consciousness, you get them into intuitive consciousness. Because while one level's not better than the other, generally speaking, we're attracted to the level that's above. And if somebody associates a better energy, like a better outlook in life to you and your brand, they're going to want more of that. And so when somebody's buying from you, they're both buying on an intellectual, well, here's what I get. And they're buying on a, hey, I really like this person. And this gives me good energy or good vibes or whatever you want to kind of say it as. And so this allows you to be able to make it so that when somebody is in that position to buy from you, there's instantaneous trust. You don't have to combat the quote unquote trust recession. So the trust recession's real. The trust recession has happened. It is happening right now. And for you, it really comes down to being able to change the way that you market and the way in which you really bring intimacy to your emails, to your launches, to your funnels, to your social media, whatever it is. And you're not getting people to buy right today, but in lack of that, you're going to have far more people that will trust you and buy from you again and again, creating a much, much more sustainable business. It might take a little time, but it's certainly worth it.